we'll have this discussion.
Discussion? What discussion?
This is a discussion.
Combustion.
Coming to you from Denver, Colorado, this is Discussion Combustion Podcast with your hosts, Kevin Batstone and Arthur Raw.
All right.
Episode 285, Discussion Combustion. We got Sasha joining us. This is going to be a good one.
Oh, of course. How can it be a bad one? That would be a bad business. We need to have good episodes of Bad Mass Pop, Pop, Pop. Like the Fifth Element. Have you guys seen the Fifth Element? The Chris Tucker? Yeah,
that's a classic.
One of those, movies that kids and I quote all the time. You want some more? So like anything works. Yeah. So I actually wanted to get to know you guys better. I'm sure your listeners know you, but Ashley only mentioned just a little bit about you. So tell us about yourself. And us, I don't mean the king, me, us, the audience. Mm-hmm.
Well, Sasha, it's great to have another survivor of the darkness join the episode. I myself have overcome opiates. I'm celebrating 4 years this month off of opiates. Right. So that's a personal achievement that I have that I'm super excited about. But with this guy sitting to my right, I've known him for 16 years, something like that. I've known Kevin for like 16 years.
Long time.
And we've been doing podcasting for 6. So best friends, we get to know people. I don't know. It's a brief intro. And Kevin you got some milestones too recently.
Yeah. So I overcame a serious alcohol addiction. So that was my big project 2024. Getting dialed in here to I do multiple shows. Arthur and I do 2 shows a week on this YouTube channel. I do a NASCAR podcast as well. I love talking to people. I love hearing people's stories and just bringing back the lost art of getting to know people and hearing what people have to say. I'm so fortunate to be able to do this.
Right. Awesome. That's good. Yeah. Spoken word, right? That we're losing it more and more to machines and screens. But hey, good. I definitely browsed through some of your podcasts and on Instagram. You've done a body of work, guys. Good job. I mean, it's really an honor to be here because, and I listen to the whole, like nowadays, 45 minutes of time is a lot to listen to someone not famous, you know what I mean? But I did go through the whole hour you guys had with Ashley, and it was a really good, engaging dialogue. So I appreciate you guys calling, me up and just having good conversations. So dark times, huh? So on a scale of 0 to 10, the darkness, 10 means most dark. How dark were yours?
I mean, I'm going to say I'll go 8 on mine. I was not homeless, so I always had a roof above my head. I always had friends that I could call and help hold me accountable. So I wouldn't say I hit a 10.
No, I don't think I did either.
But 8 was pretty low for me. That was pretty dark.
That's dark. Yeah, that's dark. That's dark. Yeah. Yeah, so I was like, it's interesting how my fate, my life has dragged me through certain spots, right? Or showed me and enlightened me. I wouldn't call it a 10 compared to like when you come to the recovery rooms, you start hearing other people's stories. And I heard stories that made my hair stand back in the back of my head from those things. So, but it was funny, like my wife and I, we were getting sober together 20 years ago. And, we would go to the mostly like white, audience, so to speak. And she would tell her story, like how she was using crack, pregnant and all that stuff. And all these white women were like, And then we'd go to the black meeting, and hear black people just going through 10 times worse stuff that was happening to them. So our story is just like light, nothing. So everything is in comparison, right? It was pretty dark though, for both of us, coming from another country, from the former Soviet Union, looking for the American dream, 29 years ago, and 5 days, as a matter of fact, or 6 days. And 29 years ago, we were like, we need to get, things for ourselves, cars and jobs and all that American dream, right? And then just ending up homeless on the streets with the one bag of possessions, going to a rehab, cutting, with all the bridges burned, so to speak. But I was kind of introduced to all the dark parts of it. Like I had a tour to a crack house, right? When, if you could call it that. So when we used to go to like detox centers to detox, and in those detox centers you would find some interesting characters, right? So my wife met this guy. Let's call him John. And John had his check on the first of the month, like Chris Rock is singing. And he said, okay, when I get a check, we're going to meet, hook up. I'll hook you up, guys. So we went to the west side of Chicago, and he didn't know many people there. By then, we already were well versed into finding the spots. Rocks blow spark, go around the block. I was going to call a book this way,
Okay.
with this title. So I took him there. We showed him the spots, and this young lady also figured out that he had his check money. So she's like, "Come on, go with me, go with me." So we go to this dark basement, and there's this crack house, and they do their things in the crack house for money and stuff like this. So the biggest thing that I remember is like, I finally say, "Terry, they're going to burn you for your money. Come on, give me the money. I'll burn you. I'll get you the drugs, And he gives me the $100, right? And it's a dark basement in the west side of Chicago. I'm holding this 100 in the light for like 2 seconds. And then out of the dark, 3 or 4 faces show up. "Hey, man, give me the money. I'm going to get you some because they're going to burn you, So they're like these vampires coming out because everybody wants to get high and get their sick off, so to speak. Nobody was getting high there. We're just people that are getting their sick off. And it was only one experience, you know what I mean? So I didn't live on the streets. I lived on the streets for 2 weeks. I lived in a shelter, slept on those gray colored sheets, and being withdrawing and stuff like this. Yeah, so I got a taste of it. Detoxes, hospitals, a little trip to 26 in California, Hotel California, some of our guys call it. Welcome to the Hotel California.
Yeah,
Right, so I checked this out. It was fun. Somebody brought in some weed somehow through all the security checks, so the guards weren't happy about it. They made us all stand up and raised our arms like this and stand like this for 10 minutes. And you don't know your arm's so heavy until you do it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. So
when I
was
got in
kinda
trouble as a
painful.
kid, my mom would make me hold cans. If I got in trouble, I would hold soup cans out, and that was torture.
Right. So like everything that's takes time, right, becomes heavier. So that was tough, and sleeping on the cement floor wasn't fun either. So all these things, I was introduced to that joblessness, standing in line for shelters and all that stuff. Yeah, that's all right. So hold on one second. Okay, there's an updates. Okay, we're gonna cancel my updates on this computer. All right. Anyway,
I thought you were trying to check out the topo.
no.
I thought you were like, "What are you guys drinking over there?" I was like, "This is topo."
It's delicious.
Topo,
A little
yeah,
zesty
Right.
non-alcoholic beverage.
There we go. Amen to that. So anyway,
So how long ago was this? Like this was like 20 years ago, you're saying?
20 years ago, yeah. So the worst years,
Okay.
it was again like some people stay in the addiction for many years, right? My wife and I, we were doing everything together, so we had sort of like a quick course, right? And so in about a year and a half, we got so fast down. So we were introduced when the Soviet Union collapsed. All the drugs started moving in, So I finally found out what cannabis was when I was 17, and I loved it because alcohol wasn't so easy on my body, so I couldn't drink much. But weed, hey, it was perfect, especially with alcohol. So and then when we got arrested, when the police finally figured out that there's something wrong with the youth, and they're not acting drunk, but they're acting weird, so they created the drug enforcement force. And in my city, we got a big bust one day. So they busted like 20 or 30 people, and they didn't have a place for us, so they put us in a psych ward in the hospital, in a locked ward. And then the cops came and started, doing interrogations and all that stuff.
And this was all in Russia.
That was in Belarus, yeah, like one
Okay.
of the republics of the Soviet Union. So
Okay.
that's where I met people who showed me, like, said, hey, when you come out, I'll hook you up with some other substances, So that's how it progressed. I met people who were cooking stuff at home. There was no drug dealers on the corners and stuff like this. So we were introduced to it when we were like 20, 21, 22. And when we left, we were 23 and came to the United States. And then we stopped because my wife had OD'd on amphetamines and almost kind of lost her sanity. So for her sake, I stopped. And in the States, we were just like, for 6, 7 years, we were just coasting, so to speak. I wasn't using any heavy substances, maybe a little weed and alcohol here and there. But then when I didn't become a rock star, I wanted to come here, of course, watching Hollywood movies, thinking like, everybody's here going to become a rock star, And I played pretty decent music. My music is interesting. You can check us out too. But again, you got to work for it. You got to be.
What's the name of the music?
The name of the band, we were called Multivitamins because we played all kinds of styles and mixed them together.
Okay.
If you ever heard Mike Patton's solo project, Mr. Bungle, in '90s was very popular. They actually, got back together. So it turned out to be that our music was very similar to that. And then we got to know them. So we were playing cool music, right? In the clubs and everything. But nobody was buying us, so to speak. So I started smoking more and more weed. And then weed stopped working. So I decided to see, what's Pulp Fiction like in reality,
Another
because
great movie.
Yeah, everybody was like, did you see Pulp Fiction, back home? Oh, they show syringe like for the whole screen and you see syringe. Oh, it was so cool for kids, when we were kids. So yeah, we found the people, Russian speaking people who kind of introduced us to the west side of Chicago, showed us what to say, where to go. And that's where this little excursion to going down to the bottom started for us. And probably within 2 years, we destroyed everything we had built in 7 years prior. Especially with the introduction.
It goes quick.
Yeah, it goes quick, especially when I found the corner.
Like, you could destroy 7 years in 1 year, and then it takes like 5 to 7 years to build it all back.
100%,
it goes quick.
Yeah, I was kind of grateful, on this corner, the guys were doing a promotion, buy, blow, get rock free, okay? Which means, if you buy heroin, you get crack for free. And of course, I wanted the deal. And I remember back in Russia, somebody told me when I was 16, they said, if you smoke crack, you get addicted from one time. And my ego goes, not me. Yeah, well, it turned out to be me, and when the deal was over, that's where the going down was really fast, because now I had to buy it, I couldn't stop it. And there was many attempts. We went to psych wards, I don't know, multiple times, longer detox centers and everything.
Now,
and
really quick question with that. Are you self-admitting yourself into the psych wards? Like, is this something that you were doing on your own accord, or
yeah
were you
interestingly enough,
that was like, okay, so it wasn't like a sentence or something you got in trouble and like the state is mandating it? Okay,
exactly. Interestingly enough, my job now is addiction counselor, so I see in my groups and individual sessions a lot of people who are mandated, so not many of them are really ready to do it. We kind of knew we were dealing with addiction. We didn't know addiction was a disease and alcoholism was a disease, so we thought we could use our willpower and stop it if we go to a hospital, right? And every time by the end of the detox, I felt this renewed strength, and I thought I was going to manage it this time. And constantly, like every time I would just do one more and it would start over again, So yeah, on the last time, I got arrested and they did want me to go to the treatment, but it wasn't like, if you don't go, you're going to go to jail. It wasn't like this, but it could be an administrative fine or something. I don't know. But I definitely didn't want to live on the streets. We were evicted from 2 apartments by then already. My wife was pregnant with the 3rd son. So living in a tent with a pregnant wife was not exactly the American dream I was imagining, and I actually drove her on the bike. I put a little pillow on a frame, so she sat in the middle in front of me. And that's how we went to the hospital to deliver our last baby, with a big bag of clothes, so it's like a big bag we came into America with all the possessions. So Yeah, it was pretty low. I was stealing like Snicker bars from gas stations to give her some nutrition, and stuff like this. But the madness of the disease, that the values I was lowering, slowly, was kind of going with that downward motion. So it was like, oh, at least I'm not as bad as this guy. At least I'm not as bad as this guy. So it was just kind of going down. And then, I could always find an excuse. But when the last friend who was always kind of sheltering me, right, when my wife already went for treatment, when they found blood in my baby's blood, they found drugs, so they mandated her for treatment. They said, you could do whatever you want, Mr. Sasha. But my friend closed the door in front of me. My last friend, I'm like, there must be something wrong. So I was just like, I got to do something. I don't want to live in shelters. I came to the United States to prosper. And I obviously, with all my Russian education, I cannot figure out how to live. So I'm like, okay, let me see what those Americans have. Because people were making fun of Americans when I was growing up because you guys were too spoiled, so to speak, right? Everybody in the rest of the world have to struggle to live. Here you got all these services that, you have for yourself to live good lives, So I thought, what can Americans tell me at that time, right? And I didn't realize that Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, all these fellowships were started here, and that they actually saved our lives, So it was really good, how the series of circumstances, right, led me to this last house on the block, and I went to rehab eventually, also like my wife, and they started telling us about recovery, and I still didn't want to listen. But when a guy like you, right, comes in who has gone before you the same, right, path and found a way, and he's not lying, he's not a doctor who's trying to make money or whatever, evangelist or preacher. The guy just like you says, I don't need your money, I just want to tell you my story. And when I heard his story and another guy's story and another guy's story, and all they said the same thing, I did this way, lived life this way, it wasn't working, then I found this 12-step program, and here's what my life is like now. I'm like, he's obviously, saying the truth, telling the truth, and I want what he has, So I did have trust from these guys, and when the time for me came to go to those meetings, I trusted that this program would work for me. And the biggest thing, and I want the world to know it, is this one phrase in one of the 12 steps. It says, God as I understand him, right? That's a big thing. Do you know about the Soviet Union? What was our main religion?
Christianity?
Good
or
guess.
Was it Catholic? It was Catholic.
Was it Catholicism?
In the Soviet Union, remember there was the communists, right? What did communists believe? Did you guys remember? No, it's okay. It's not a pop quiz.
I don't know the faith. I don't.
That's fine. There was no faith. Atheism was the faith. We believed there was no God.
Okay.
Oh, so there you
So
go.
you know what I mean? So it's like it's 180 degrees flip, for most people who believed, hey, human is the pinnacle of the creation, whatever. And suddenly I'm like, hey, my human power is not working. No matter how hard I try to not use drugs keep using me, And then I come and these people say, you don't have to believe in Jesus Christ. You don't have to believe in Muhammad, the prophet, or whatever, Allah, or any other, deities that are traditional religion, right? You could just believe in God as you understand him. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Which means I can't actually point fingers no more. Oh, look at those Christians, right? They are hypocrites. They say one thing, do another thing. Now the responsibility was turned back at me, right? You see, so that's an interesting thing. And I could create any kind of God I wanted to, provided this God was loving and caring and was going to help me. And that changed my life. And that's why, basically when I do my counseling, I do offer a lot of different tools to people that are available in psychology and drug addiction recovery. But the main tool, really, if you're a real alcoholic or an addict, is surrender. Right? When you really admit that, look how many times you tried, right? Did it work for you? How's it working for you? Obviously not. So if I'm honest with myself and I surrender, I win. That's a paradox of the program, right? You surrender to win, and how do you keep the program? By giving it away. These two paradoxes are working pretty well in my life and the life of many friends I have now in 12-step fellowships, right? So that's a beautiful thing. And I suggest anyone to try to find this direct connection to something bigger than you, right? Mm-hmm. And some people say God is within. Some people say God is goddess, right? Some people say there's universal forces. Some people say nirvana. It doesn't matter. There's a book called How God Changes Your Brain. It's like a scientific study of what happens to people who practice various sorts of religious practices, right? And they found that there is a spot in the brain that actually gets activated in the process of meditation or a prayer that disconnects the frontal lobe that is busy with all these thoughts, confusing thoughts and beliefs that we have in our lives from childhood, right? When you disconnect it, you start feeling oneness with something bigger, and it creates the sense of awe. And then you say, oh, very good. And that's exactly what happened to me in rehab. I trusted you guys, right? The guys who were ahead of me, sober already. And they said, just surrender, ask for help, and Russians have this big, all Russian-speaking people from the Soviet Union have this big motto: Russians don't surrender. You see, it's like in my blood, it's in my genes, and I couldn't surrender for so long. But the moment I said that, I was at 5 o'clock in the morning. I remember it like it was yesterday. I said something like lying down in this room. I felt high, right? I didn't pay no dealers, no money, but I felt the presence of some amazing something in me, like it was the heat wave going through me over and over. I started crying. I felt like goosebumps and everything. And I'm like, as an addict, I'm like, that seems like a good deal. I don't have to pay anybody. You know what I mean? And I'm getting the same high. And I'm like, maybe those people are right. Let me see what those 12 steps have in them, right? Mm-hmm. And I was so afraid to lose it because waking up in the morning, you guys remember the feeling, right? You wake up in the morning, there is no hope. There's only misery and pain, and like, I'll do anything not to experience this anymore. They tell me, eat dirt, I'll eat dirt, But actually, nobody asks me for that. They just say, keep coming back. Go to 90 meetings in 90 days, something like this. Very simple. Get yourself a guy who already went through the steps. Call him a sponsor. Call him every day. Whatever. Simplest stuff. And they say that the 12-step program is for complicated people, that Bozo will get it and Einstein will miss it. All these little cliches that, again, cool addicts, don't want to listen to when we are thinking we're in control, right? Suddenly it all started working, just surrender was awesome, So for me, it was definitely the beauty happening, like miracles were happening literally every day. I couldn't believe it, literally. Like, everybody talks about DCFS. Do you know, guys, about DCFS? Have you heard of that abbreviation? DCFS, Department of Children and Family Services. Department of Children and Family Services. So if you talk to an addict or a mother whose child was taken by DCFS to the state custody, they'd be like, these motherfuckers, they're always kind of yell at them. They're so bad, they're taking our children. DCFS are just people who are trying to help. In our case with my wife and me, they actually said, go to treatment and we'll not take your baby. We'll just check on you once in a while. And guess what? DCFS actually gave us the deposit for our new apartment when we got out of treatment. They paid for our first month's rent. They bought us a refrigerator. They bought us the stove because there was not one available in the apartment I found. They led us. They found us diapers and everything. That was really helpful. Those miracles were happening day and night. One day somebody called me, hey, do you need a free car? I'm like, what's the catch?
Excuse me?
Yeah, like, what's the catch? You know what I mean? And I needed to take my baby son, the third born, right? The third youngest son, to the doctor quite often, right? And it was cold. So I'm like, what do I need to do? It's like, nothing, just pay the insurance. The person who has the car, is moving to New York. She doesn't want to have a car there. So I had a free car, somebody gave me the place heaters, somebody gave me air conditioners, and all I did was just go into those meetings and doing the next right thing, they say. Yeah. So when you see that life changes just because you're being a good person, you don't want to give it up. I mean, I have stolen so much. Right? Yeah, I've just done so many shady stuff just to survive one more day. This was day and night, you know. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm staying here. So my wife eventually, she didn't speak English very well. She's like, are there any Russian groups like this in Chicago? And we started looking it up in the directory, and there was no Russian group. So we were like,
Mm.
well, I guess we'll be the ones. So we started asking people in the meetings if they have seen any other Russians, you know. And we found one guy, one African American guy said, oh, I saw one Russian. I'll give you the phone number. We're like, okay, give us the number. So we started, like three of us started meeting, you know. And then the fourth guy came. Then the fifth guy came. And so on and so we started growing this little Russian movement in Chicago. And guess what? Like now we're going to have a 16th annual convention of Russian-speaking AAs in North
Oh, that's
America. We have a
awesome.
regional committee that is working now. We have 200 Russians coming in from all over. Single
Wow.
people from this town, this town, this town, you know.
That's
We
awesome.
have a
Yeah, congrats.
website, you know, yeah, everything. We started a non-for-profit organization and everything just to coordinate this. We create conventions on Zoom during COVID. We like united with the European guys who speak Russian there, you know, Russians and everything. So now we're this one big community that helps people who don't speak English find recovery too. Stuff like this, you know. So it's like our musical talents came in handy. My wife and I started creating those little skits and, you know, music numbers to entertain alcoholics, you know, who are sober now, you know. So, I mean, your higher power can find a thing or two for you to do if you stay close to it, and life will never be boring. That's another thing too. Remember when you're like,
Yeah.
people say you have to quit drinking, you're like, oh, how's my life going to be?
Yeah.
I'm going to be a square. Life's
Yeah.
going to be dark and boring,
Yeah.
right? No, none of this has been happening. You know, they call it the pink cloud. Have you heard of that? Like when you just release, right? So that pink cloud I'm still on, 21st year, right? I don't know when
20
it's going to
years.
dissipate. Yeah, 20 years,
I,
I'm going
I
on
believe I
21st, right?
believe it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Going on
I,
21.
I believe it won't
Mhm.
dissipate because it's all a mentality. I just have to unpack a couple things there. The importance of letting go, surrendering, like you said, and whenever I've talked about this in the past, it's accepting the facts of reality and having a level of neutrality and allowing yourself to like get through that, you know?
Yep.
So that's awesome that a level of acceptance, like and breaking generational conditioning through politics and like understanding and giving your faith into something bigger than yourself. Like I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. So I feel that. Um, Another recap. I remember the first time that I felt the opiate high without
Mm-hmm.
taking opiates. I was on a walk and I was in nature and I was present and I remember just feeling this euphoria and I recognized that feeling and I cried
Mm-hmm.
that day too, similar to your story. So that one was really good. And then man, just bridging the gap of language because it
Mm-hmm.
is difficult for immigrants or even if I was to go to like, you know, a Spanish nation to speak in Espanol. I know a little bit, but it's
Mm-hmm.
difficult. So anyone who's bilingual, I have a lot of respect for.
Oh,
Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
to share that gift, you know, to share that gift with others that are very similar. That's just my quick
yeah.
recap on some of that. Like, what a
No,
great
thank you, thank
story.
you.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure you have questions, comments,
well,
Kev.
yeah. I mean, that was.
yeah,
I appreciate you taking us on that journey, you know, and kind of paint the
yeah.
picture of the story so that the viewers can
Mm-hmm.
really take in, you know, because people just see you now or they see Arthur and I now, and they don't really see that backside of the story. And like you said, you know, in these meetings, you have people sharing this, like, oh, other people have been through this, and you know, we've been pretty fortunate here on the podcast to share stories like that that can also help people stay sober a day. And it's just an incredible movement, like you said, and staying on that cloud
Mm-hmm.
it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, there's another miracle I want to share. You know, when I was 6, I came from school, and it was Soviet Union. Like you know, you cannot talk against the government. Therefore, you cannot talk about God, right? Because there was a no-no in an atheist country. And I came from home, and like from school, and I said to my mom, Mom, my first teacher is so nice and he's so good. I want to be like a teacher when I grow up. And she told me, son, you could be anything you want. You know, it's kind of funny and cliche now, but at that time it was very encouraging. And I kind of remembered that I wanted to be a teacher, and I was helping my classmates all the time. So I kind of had that, And another day I came from home, and somebody had given me this little crucifix, like a little cross to play with. And kids in Russia didn't have enough
Was that
toys, so
trouble?
it was listen, yeah.
Like,
So I didn't know. I was 6 or 7, like first grade.
yeah.
And I brought it to school. I didn't know what it was. It was just like a new toy for me that wasn't sold in stores, right? And my teacher saw it. She started getting covered, like her face was in red blotches, because she was like, it's against something, the rule, the policy, you cannot talk about God or bring. Where did you get that? And I don't understand what's going on. Why am I being yelled at, right? So she took me to the principal, and he asked me where I got it. Said my uncle gave it to me. Whatever. They used to like chase people who followed religion, right? And like KGB was after them. Yeah, it was pretty tough. Wow. They'd jail you and kill you in 30s and 40s. Send you to labor camps in 50s and 60s, and put you in a cuckoo house in 70s and 80s, right? So it was kind of not really a free choice for you to believe. You were under. So my mom actually, when I came home, was like, Mom, what is this? And she actually went down to whisper, even in the 80s, it was 81 maybe, 1981. She's like, some people say there is no God, but there is. I was like, oh, wow, So, and I remembered that. But then you kind of become a teenager. You want to be liked by girls and stuff. So I started playing music, long hair, all that stuff, and I forgot about it. I wanted to, become a rock star. And my sponsor always jokes like that I chose the wrong rocks, if you know the nickname for the crack, right? So, and so what happened, right? The miracle of recovery, once, like you said, you surrender and you find that new vibration. I was in that halfway house, living in a halfway house after rehab, right? Dating my wife again. She was not too far away. We would just go on dates again, It was really romantic and stuff. And I was looking for a job. There was a college nearby where I went to a computer lab to look for jobs. And I saw one girl helping somebody with their essay papers. And she was swamped by students. And a thought came to me, like, maybe she needs some help. That's a part of recovery. You always be of service, So I'm like, do you need help? She's like, it would be nice. Are you a tutor? I'm like, no, but I can be, you know what I mean? So, because, I learned the language by what? By learning it. So I know it better than you guys because I have to understand what I'm saying, right? So she's like, go to the dean, ask him. And the dean's like, well, we're not hiring, but, how about volunteering? I said. And the dean's like, oh, of course, go volunteer, So I started doing this. And a year later, I find myself teaching English as a second language for people from all over the world, in the best building, right next to the United Center in Chicago, where Chicago Bulls are playing, like with the best equipped room, with this big, presentation boards, computers, and electronic laser pointers and stuff, doing what I do best, right? I can teach English to people who are learning English because I was the one who learned English, the same like in recovery, right? An alcoholic can help another alcoholic because he has or she has gone through it, So God was putting me in those places, and one day I remember the security guard said to me, good morning, professor. And I actually looked around like this, who is he calling? Because I remember just like a year and a half shooting crack, in the West Side trying to find a vein. I was just like, it's a trip,
Wow.
So those little things, little gifts, little gifts. And of course, we don't become perfect right away. There's a lot of character defects that I still carry with me. But the fact is that I'm willing, right? Willing to be open to the challenge that my higher power provides me with every day. That's enough, man. Life becomes full, and there's no thought. Like there was only one thought, right? When something went wrong, when I was using, I need to get high to solve it, right? Now the thought is not there, and I did not remove it. So I have to give credit to whatever that was that removed that thought, because I couldn't do it no matter how many times I tried. So I keep honoring my higher power. I keep helping the newcomers. I keep doing what I'm doing, and it seems to be, fulfilling me. And if you think about it, they say there's the biggest stress in life. One of the biggest stress psychologists put in is like losing your loved one and losing your parent, right? So I lost my mom in 2016. And I lost my wife to cancer 5 months ago. Okay, so my life partner of 33 years, she lost that battle, right? She fought hard. She was the light of the world and the best thing that ever happened to me. And the thought to use about it was not nowhere near, you know. It's like, how can I honor my wife by getting high? That makes no sense to me today. You know, if it was 20 years ago, that would be the first thing I would be doing. I wouldn't even be at the funeral, right? I'd be like, oh, poor me, let me get away from it. You know, today I face life because people like, you know, like sober people taught me how to live life on life's terms. That's what you said. You know, accepting life as is and seeing what can be done with it. So what are my gifts to this world? How do I develop these gifts? Like, what do I need to surrender today, right, to become a better conduit, to better, you know, transmitter of God's will, being an example of, you know, the right doing, something like that, you know, right and wrong always changes.
It feels so good. If that
Yeah.
feels the best, honestly, when you know that you're being a selfless person and you're doing it just because it's the right thing to do. And it's
Yeah.
weird because I'll hear my like consciousness tries to talk me out of doing selfless things sometimes. Like I think about it and I'm like, do I really need to do that? I'm like, well, yeah, you just thought about it. So that's it. That's a great place to be. And to your point of, you know, getting rid of that thought and not like your present self doesn't need to lean on a substance to find a solution or to find happiness, even though life comes at us. With that whole point, I really think it's for me, and I just have to say this from my own perspective, is you have to deal with the gray. So when you are
Right.
changing, like what is you're using a fake substance to feel something, and when you're trying to feel something else and you remove that, there's this gray area. I don't know how long it takes for everybody. It's different. For me, the gray area lasted at least like 3 to 6 months, where like
Right.
I couldn't see color in the day. It was always mundane. It was always boring. But I do remember being in that mentality back in the day of like, you know, how boring would life be if I didn't do drugs or like all this other stuff? You know, like I used to think like that. And now I find so much more value because I made it through the gray. I started to see the light and there's actually color and there's actually more beauty. And what I see now is more beautiful and euphoric than what I ever saw on drugs. Like, even though I thought that
Right.
was the shit back then, like what I experience now, like how life is now, being responsible, you know, being honest. Like I used to lie all the time, but being honest, like that feeling to know that you're an honest person, like it means a
Yeah.
lot. So, I mean, there's a lot
Liberating.
Yeah.
that radiates with your story.
Yeah, there is. And,
Yeah.
you know, I always say you got to feel it to heal it. Right. And so for me, I just buried myself in alcohol for so long and all the problems I had and anger, it'll go away once I get drunk, you know, that type of stuff. So, you know, feeling it to heal it. And I remember when the first week I got off alcohol, things started going wrong. All the problems started happening. Life was testing me.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
piggybacking off your point of not using during, you know, hard times, and our condolences on your loss, by the way. But yeah,
Thank you.
life's going to
Thank
get
you.
hard and things happen. Right. And I think that's the real test, you know, when you're in that gray area, when you're coming off of addiction, when you're, you know, finding the color again, you know, there's always going to be those rainy days. And I think that's, you can get through those sober and just staying sober one more day through it. I mean, that's kind of my approach to it, that we're going to stay sober today.
Right.
We're going to move on to tomorrow. Because you start thinking too far ahead, and then it gets, you know, anxiety starts creeping in, and you know, everyone's a little different.
Yeah. Different personality all over. But notice how it is even for you guys, right? How much more inspiring it is for you to work together, this podcast, right? It's always, that's the goodness of, you know, fellowships of all sorts, right? 12-step or otherwise, it doesn't matter. When you have like-minded people, it's almost like I always use this analogy with the old radio. Remember those radios where you could tune to different frequencies? Right? I used to have one. And when I wanted to catch this, like a middle frequencies that are hard to catch, I would touch the antenna and the signal would get stronger because it would use my body as an antenna too. So when you come to the gathering of people that are like-minded, it's almost like you grabbing this antenna to hear the signal of whatever that is you're trying to tune yourself into, right? much better. So you can do it alone, yeah, but what's the point? Scientists already found that we have a set of neurons called mirror neurons in the brain that get activated in the presence of other person and start imitating that. Even if I'm doing nothing, my brain is doing what you're doing. So why not use the tool that nature has given us already to get better? So why not gather somewhere for free? Think about that too, right? All these 12-step groups are free. Just to sit for an hour once a week or twice a week, whatever many you need, and just reflect upon your life. How was my week? What happened to other people, right? How many people can say with like pride or satisfaction that they know somebody, have known somebody for 10 or more years, and seen them grow and being honest and helping each other, right? We just run, and where do we meet? In the bar? For a happy hour or work gathering where everybody is just thinking, how are we getting paid for it? You know what I mean? It's just like, where are those groups? Church groups? Yeah, good, And I do say to people, go back to your church if you don't like 12-step groups. Somebody. But who is going to be better understanding, right, than the people who have gone through similar stuff? People in churches, when you tell them you're an addict, they kind of grab their purses, right, a little closer. People in AA, they clap to you, hey, you're sober, So it's like, okay, nice, So definitely this element of unity, working together, doing the next right thing. And I wanted to address this thing about doing selfless things. I did not get rid of my ego. I'm still a selfish dude. I just know the value of a selfless action. Some people say doing the right things with the wrong intention is better than not doing anything. Maybe it's not, it doesn't sound profound or nice and noble, but people will judge you not by what you think, but what you do, So I used to think like this: if you were my friend and I needed a 20, right, to get high, I would just think like, how am I going to get your 20, and what do I need to do, right, to get that 20? Today I think, well, how can I help you? And then, maybe God will give me something. So my ego is not gone. It's just more natural for me to think about helping you first. And then, if I get a reward, good. If I don't, I'm staying sober. That's my reward. You know what I mean? So ego is important. If you think about it, ego is a combination, right? It's like a Lego, the Lego blocks put together to create your personality, you. If you remove every single Lego block, what's going to be left? Pure energy. So you basically will disappear into thin air if I am is going to be gone. So we need the ego to experience this world, right? It's just, it doesn't dominate me as much as it used to. I allow my higher power to step in. And it's so much fun to do its bidding because there's always something new it's offering. Drugs always told me to do the same thing. Go steal there, go lie there, just to get this. And you're going to get this best high. And eventually it was like 3 minutes of fun and 3 hours.
It was never as good as the first time. It was a lie.
No, it's a lie. But it was always sold as like this, right? I'm going to tell you this quick joke. There's a joke about this guy dying, right, and choosing where to go. He's got a chance to choose, and the guy is asking him, would you like to see, the hell and the heaven? The guy's going, yeah, sure. So he opens the door, and he sees heaven. Everybody's wearing light robes. Birds are chirping. People are talking in soft voices. He's like, okay, nice, good. So how about hell? So they open another door, and there's a party going on. Everybody's partying, sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatnot, right? He's like, oh, awesome. I want to go here. And the guy goes, okay, well, sign right here. So the guy signs up. As he finishes signing up, two big-ass demons grab him, drop him on the frying pan, and starting the fire. He's like, hey, what's going on? What about that room? They say, sir, don't confuse advertisement with reality. So that's how the devil is, right? If you want to call that, it's like, hey, look at this colorful, shiny things, but then I'm gonna screw you in the butt. You know what I mean? So it's always like this. This is just a law, of energy. What you put in is what you get out.
It's too true. And I agree, like with the being selfish thing as well, because you have to take care of yourself first. And if you're not willing to prioritize yourself, if you don't put yourself above everything, then you can't do anything. And that was one thing that was kind of hard for me to completely understand and do it in a humble way. because
Right.
you do need to have a level of self-confidence. Like, I'm the motherfucking shit. I can keep this ship on course. Like, good luck doing it like me. Good luck working as hard as me. And like, you almost have to have, and like, I'm a little jaded. Like, I've gotten ripped off so many times. I've gotten screwed over so many times. Like, I'm jaded. So like, there is that like you have to be selfish, but then you also have to be like humble. And then we all know the right thing to do, and we don't always want to do it. And when you start just listening and doing the right thing anyway, there is this reality there that is so beautiful, because you've taken care of yourself. You're listening to what you know you need to do. You're humble about what you've accomplished. And then all of a sudden, people around you, everyone starts growing. And it's like Kev, like, you have that power. Like, Kevin's like done all these different things, and it's like help motivate me. And like, I've done, like you're saying, like, we're so fortunate to have each other.
Yeah, the unity.
Yeah, I could keep going off right now.
Yeah, there you go. You guys actually, did you know you put the ferns on the left and on the right, and you're sitting between two ferns?
Yes,
it looks
between
like
two ferns.
Yeah,
it's like Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah, right.
Here's another here's another view of the studio here.
There you go.
So we
good,
got
good.
And normally the guest is sitting right here.
Yeah.
And so if you're ever in Denver, obviously,
if you come through Denver, we got to get you on the couch.
Yeah, obviously we're getting.
I'll lie down and you will. Yeah, and you will, shrink me. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Absolutely, guys. Yeah, perfect. I mean, I'm glad that I have a chance to share, and hopefully it will be beneficial for somebody. We do need to take care of ourselves. Yeah, obviously, because I cannot be of help to people if I'm not taking care of myself. So, but selfishness and self-care are two different things, right? And I could be selfish sometimes because I haven't overcome all the fears, right, and stuff like this. So yeah, sometimes I'll do something small and ineffective just to save my ass, But most of the time, I'm inspired enough to step outside my comfort zone and do something that's right, because I know already the results of it. They pay off, So even just like
I can't believe you went from professor of crack to professor of English.
Right? Yeah. I'm telling you, crazy. I still don't believe that. Yeah,
that is crazy.
And, in a short, in the terms, and like in the matter of like a year and a half, it was just like weird, and those stories are important for other people with low self-esteem, especially like, hey, if a Russian immigrant, right, was able to just do stuff like this with God's help, let's use the word God for the lack of a better word, then you can do it too. And that's exactly what saved me, because I lost hope. I almost had nothing. And when I heard stories of the people who were less fortunate than me getting better through recovery process, I'm like, I can do that too. And that's what I'm here for, actually, to carry the same message. You don't have to be an alcoholic, because these 12 steps work in another 300 fellowships. You just substitute your word alcohol with under-earning or cluttering or emotions or gambling, or sex and love, and apply those steps in a group of like-minded people. Use those steps in everyday activities and all your affairs and see what happens. That's it. So if you have any more questions, hey, reach out to me. You will always find me at Meta Coaches, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Drop all your plugs for us. We'll include them in the show notes down below. But what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah. So I guess it will be easy to just write at sasha@metacoaches.org. I'm a life coach. I'm a couples coach, addictions, obviously. So Sasha, SASHA, right? Like you hear it, at metacoaches.org. And I'll respond, definitely within 48 hours, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
I love what you're doing with helping Russians that are learning English, and having this program that has helped so many people through that. And even just recording these type of podcasts, not everybody has the courage to actually get involved and to reach out, but this might actually, and I guarantee this conversation will touch people. It's helped me already, even just reminders.
Amen.
Yeah, no, that's
the hope.
It was like a meeting
I want
to
be right. Yeah, I'm going to be rich and famous, right? You guys have to guarantee that. Rich and famous.
Hey, we're doing this together, Sasha.
We're on this journey together.
Of course.
We're taking this.
I loved what Tony Robbins said about that, right? Money does not change people. It just amplifies who they are. And I love it.
It's true.
So that's basically, if we get the money, hey, amen to that. No, we'll still be fine.
That's right.
We're already
thank you so much for thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely touching. Everybody watching and listening in.
Super Daddy-o.
Definitely, check out Super Daddy-o. We'll put the website below. And what an amazing man. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for inviting me. Enjoy your night, and I hope to see you guys in person one day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's stay in touch, Sasha.
All right.
Good to yourself.
You deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right. Bye-bye.